Welcome to the Health Angle Podcast with Dr. Mike Headlee and Dr. Gordon Fimreite, where we'll be exploring different angles of health to achieve the best version of yourself. Now here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Gordon.
Hi, I am Dr. Mike, and with me is Dr. Gordon. Hey, Gordy.
Hi, welcome. Hey, Mike. Welcome, everyone. Today is a really fun subject for Dr. Mike and I. It's one that we have a deep passion, and that's chiropractic. Every week, we do take a different subject on health, and we make it pertinent to your life so you can improve your health and well-being and longevity. So, Dr. Mike, what do you think? What do you think of this chiropractic subject?
Yeah, I've been doing it 30 years.
Oh,
Time
but you're
flies.
only 25. How is that possible?
Yeah, I know. I went to the chiropractor first when I was 13-ish, 12 or 13, and been getting, roughly regular care my whole life. A couple of things I'm proud of is I haven't taken a prescription in 25 or 30. I had surgery on my elbow, so I think I might have had some kind of a drug or prescription or something, but I haven't had a prescription or a drug or over-the-counter stuff in 25 plus years. And I've had back injuries and broken vertebrae and whiplash and all these other things, but I know I'd be addicted to opioids or some kind of pain pills if it wasn't for chiropractic. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, opioid, that's a big one because now there's ongoing studies showing low back pain, a treatment with chiropractic is much more preferred over taking the opioids because the opioids it's such a highly addictive drug. People just can't get off it. So, I started chiropractic probably a little bit later, and I wish my parents would have found it because I was one of those people that as a child, they put ear tubes in my ears because my ears weren't draining. I had infection, so they ended up putting tubes so it would drain. And as a result of that, to this day, I have chronic ear ringing. I probably wouldn't know I have ear ringing. I just have been educated on it. But at night, I have a constant, like a fan or something, just to kind of buzz that noise out. And I wish my parents knew about chiropractic because I know the effectiveness with childhood ear infections has been validated now through some of the studies out there. I started chiropractic probably just after college, and I had played college football. I had a concussion when I was a kid and racked myself up quite a bit playing football, and I could definitively feel differences as a result. I know my nasal canal was always kind of plugged, and after getting chiropractic, just opened up the pathways. Felt more energy like most people do after their adjustments. So that was kind of my path. And then one of my mentors was Dr. Dean Shepard. I actually had the honor to work with him in the Milwaukee area for my first 2 years. So I had him and his partners with just an exceptional amount of experience soaking in just about everything I could. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I have a little quick story about my first day in chiropractic college. I had a mild scoliosis in my upper back from falling off a ladder 16 feet. And I say I had because I had that corrected and it's not an issue right now. But I didn't have it corrected when my first day of chiropractic school. So I'm sitting in the auditorium and I'm so self-conscious. I had back pain at the time and I'm looking around. I think all these other people are going to be fit and healthy and straight spines, and they're slouching over in their chairs and hunching over. I had a guy that was, 350 pounds. He was actually the first adjustment I ever delivered to his neck that I couldn't feel. He was a big boy, and I'm still friends with him. And so I was just self-conscious of like, oh my gosh, they're going to kick me out. I have such a bad back and I could hardly sit. I had sciatica, leg numbness and tingling. But then I got assigned an intern the first week, and I couldn't believe that I could get free chiropractic care in college by upper students and my professors. And it was just like the greatest thing ever. I could get worked on all the time.
Oh, that's great.
One of my other instructors the first day or the first week said, DC, Doctor of Chiropractic, also stands for Doctor of Chronics. He says you're going to see a lot of people with chronic things. They think they just wake up with a headache or a neck pain, but when you question them, they've had it for weeks and months and years and past injuries. And then DC also stands for Doctor of Cause. Always look for the cause. And so we'll talk a little bit about that with philosophy in a little bit. So that was a little bit about my first day and first week of school. And I love the free chiropractic care.
I remember when I first started, I was expecting everybody to have this perfect postures, sitting upright, and I was concerned, like, would I be like out of the ordinary if I kind of leaned forward or leaned backwards or did something? And even today, when people are like, "Oh, you're a chiropractor, I better keep my posture up." So there's a lot of kind of like these nuances that will hopefully explain some of the typical patients that we see. Dr. Mike's going to talk about the philosophy of chiropractic. And, speaking of chiropractic, it composes of the art, philosophy, and science. It's those three realms. And our founders kind of were visionary. They were above and beyond their years. And so it's actually a fun profession to practice because the art of it is just the art of finding ways to fix problems through the adjustments that chiropractors administer. So that's part of the treatment. We like to call it an adjustment. And the art of that is just finding a way to get the best adjustment possible. Philosophy, and this, Mike, you're going to dive into this. Philosophy is just, what do we stand for? What is it? Why do we practice? And we talk about the nervous system. And the nervous system functions from above down. That's where the brain is, down the spinal cord. So from above down, inside from the spinal cord out. So from above down, inside out. And then there's a whole lot of philosophy. We'll touch on that a little bit later. And then the science. There's more and more science. Even when I started chiropractic almost 30 years, I'm not quite catching you, Dr. Mike, 27 for me. But even since in the past 27 years, it's been exciting to see all the science validating some of the things that they just didn't know about before. There are so many studies on low back pain, and that's a given, neck pain, some of the common things that people come to see chiropractors for, a ton of studies. But there's also a lot of studies on things that people don't think of. And so we'll dive into that a little bit, and I'll touch on some history as well.
Most professions come from humble beginnings. So a lot of chiropractors say, oh, we don't want to talk about our founders and what they did before they discovered chiropractic. We all came from somewhere. So I'm proud of where the chiropractic history you had to start somewhere. Yeah, I always think of the philosophy, science, and art as the philosophy is the why we do what we do. The science is the what and the proof that what we do really, really matters. And the science of it, I have a bunch of scientific studies I'll quote in a little bit. And then the art is how we apply our healing art. And I'll talk a little bit about tonal and structural and muscular type analysis and techniques and the how. So with that, tell us a little bit about the history since you went to the original chiropractic college in Davenport, Iowa.
Yeah, we talked last week and Mike goes, okay, you can hit the history since you were actually on the Palmer campus. So yeah, you can feel the history there. You can palpably feel it. There's three main people involved. The founder, which is D.J. Palmer. His son was B.J. Palmer. He was the developer, really made what chiropractic what it is today, more or less. And then his son was David Palmer, and he was the educator. And then B.J., the developer, also his wife, Mabel Palmer, she was also instrumental, an educator, had a lot to do with X-ray. The founder, D.D. Palmer, he was actually a magnetic healer. And he found chiropractic in 1895 in downtown Davenport. And downtown Davenport, he worked as a magnetic healer. And there was a janitor in the building. His name was Harvey Lillard, and he really just couldn't hear. And so D.D. Palmer kind of evaluated him. And he found this lump in his neck. He found something there. And he hypothesized about how the nervous system could have been compromised in the neck region. Now, even to this day, if you fast forward, there's still controversy. What did he exactly adjust to restore Harvey Lillard's hearing? And that's how chiropractic was founded, by the way. He adjusted Harvey Lillard in 1895. Harvey Lillard had his hearing restored, and that was the premise for the beginnings of chiropractic. So D.D. Palmer said, well, hey, if the nervous system is peded, what happens if you take the bone and you unblock it from the nervous system so those signals can get to the rest of the body. So chiropractic was basically about realigning and reestablishing the nerve supply by realigning and correcting these subluxations, as we call them. So a misalignment is really a subluxation, which is less than a misalignment, but it's pressure onto the nervous system, causing dis-ease or the lack of ease. And then green books were started by D.D. Palmer in 1906. And these were the first chiropractic textbooks. The green books, it is about everything chiropractic, the art, philosophy, and science of that time. B.J. Palmer, he continued that along with his faculty until 1963. So the green books are a very important part of the chiropractic profession, where they document the thoughts, the theorists of D.D. Palmer, the founder, B.J., the developer, and these books have just been studied and read and studied and read. It just goes through the evolution of our profession. B.J. Palmer, the developer, and his wife, Mabel Palmer, she taught anatomy, was instrumental in the X-ray as well. B.J. ran his research clinics in Davenport, Iowa for 16 years. And then he eventually decided to get into the upper cervical. Before it was a full spine adjusting from the neck basically down to the tailbone. He kind of switched for a period to do upper cervical, and he called this area C1 the hole-in-one adjustment. If you adjust that, you can affect the entire nervous system, because the hole-in-one is where the atlas C1 has a hole where the nervous system, part of the brain, extends through the spinal cord, goes through and extends the nervous system. So if that C1 was off, you could directly impede upon the nervous system, affecting everything below it. And that was his philosophy. So he did upper cervical for a time before it went back. And then he was very instrumental as far as getting X-ray machines into the Palmer clinics. I believe it was in 1910. So it was very, very early in the chiropractic youthhood, so to speak. Then he came up with a neurocalameter to see how the nervous system is functioning. So he was way ahead of his time at the time. And then in the 20s, the practicing of medicine without a license was a thing. So I remember going to Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1996. That's when I graduated. And they had the centennial, the 100 years of chiropractic. And they had speakers of every legend you can imagine in our profession was at this conference. And they had guys from the 1920s that were actually put in jail for practicing chiropractic without a license. And I know there was controversy. This was before the pharmaceuticals were in place. So this is a time where people didn't have solutions for a lot of conditions. In fact, in Davenport, Iowa, it consists of 4 cities, the Quad Cities, and one of them is Moline. And Moline, they used to call it the International Airport, because they would have dignitaries from different countries all over the world coming to Davenport to the Palmer clinics. They were that well, they were world renowned. And then in 1924, Mabel Palmer decided, well, let's put our art and artifact collection of all of our European and Asian. They were vivid travelers. So they made a little bit of heaven. And today that little bit of heaven is known as the Philosophy Center. So if we get a bunch of chiropractors there for homecoming, this is where we talk about philosophy. And it can be very inspiring and deep. And the why is definitely answered during these philosophy nights, which is just, you almost have to experience it. But the excitement that I get by just talking about it pierces me. I love it. Now, David Palmer, this was the son of BJ. He was the educator. So he worked on getting accreditations for colleges. He wanted to modernize Palmer College of Chiropractic. And David went to the University of Pennsylvania first, and then Wharton College, and then finally he became a doctor of chiropractic and then ran the clinics. And he did some incredible things on the educational front. By the way, his wife was Agnes. Now, David Palmer passed away in the 70s. His wife actually spoke to our class in, I believe, 1996. And it was interesting to hear her speak because she had all those wisdom. She knew all the founding members of this family and all the other chiropractic greats of the time. She really believed that there is this spirit, the innate intelligence, the spirit, God, so to speak, running through the nervous system. And she really believed that the energy of the earth and basically God was running through us through this innate intelligence is the body's ability to heal itself. And we'll get into the philosophy and talk a little bit more about that. But I'm going to quickly get through some really important years for chiropractic. In 1976, this is a pivotal lawsuit for the chiropractic professional. Wilk versus the American Medical Association. A lawsuit was filed. A group of chiropractors accused the American Medical Association and their affiliates for violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. Basically, what they were doing was in their publication, they were calling chiropractor quacks. They were saying that chiropractic had no legitimacy, it didn't work, and they were basically discrediting the chiropractic profession. Wilkes actually won that lawsuit, and from that point on, chiropractic reached momentum and really became what it is today. Some of the things that I saw on campus as a student, the Palmer residence. Now, this is where BJ, DD, and the Palmer residents actually lived there. They were world travelers, they were collectors, and they usually have their home open. It's a museum now, but they have it open during the homecoming, and they actually have it open on special occasions as well. And they have relics from basically all over the world. BJ actually lived there till 1961. Go through the Palmer residence. It is pretty incredible in itself. Dr. Mike, have you had the pleasure of going through that museum, and what was your take of it?
Yeah, I went to school at Northwestern College of Chiropractic in Bloomington, and so we just didn't have the rich history and the philosophy. And as they say, it's in the bricks at Palmer, I mean, it just BJ, DD, David, I mean, they all walked the streets and the residences and that. And so, yeah, I got a diplomat in philosophy from Palmer. So that's how I got to be really familiar with the campus. And I went there for 5 years after graduation. And so then part of that, degree, as we graduated, we got to go on the upper floors and we could see where BJ had his razor when the last time he shaved, and in his bathroom, and his closet was full of his clothes and things, and it was just really special time. He had a barber's chair, I remember, in his house, and it was just, yeah, really, really, really neat. I have a shingle in my office from the original mansion because they shingled it, and so I got an original shingle from his. And then one of my mentors in Whitehall, I was privileged to get several of his screen books that were autographed by BJ Palmer, so that I still have those. So that's, yeah, a lot of rich history at Palmer.
I remember running into another Palmer graduate who was practicing chiropractic, a little older than I, but he goes, I remember when I was a kid, you'd sit on BJ's lap, as a child, and BJ would tell stories. He was into the circus. He was really a member of the community. People loved the guy, and he was world renowned. People knew him from all over the place before drugs really came prominent in the late 20s, maybe early 30s. People didn't have choices. They had a choice of going to chiropractic. And it was found back then. It was really popular. And like I said, the international airport was known in Moline as an international airport because they literally had people from all over the world that would go there for a week and have care and stuff. And when you said that was in the bricks, I mean, you're not kidding, Mike. They have epigrams. Epigrams, at one point they had 3,000 epigrams inside and outside the premises at the Palmer College campus. Today, the epigrams have been restored. They remain not as many, though. And some of the epigrams, I'll just read 4 of them. The power that made the body heals the body. Chiropractic is concerned with people expressing their full potential, constantly striving to make our best better. The love you give always is the love you keep. So those are just 4 examples. It was almost like a motivating, like, we talked about goals where we put it up on our refrigerator, or Dr. Mike, when he played football, they put it on their helmet on tape. You put your goals, you put your, things that mean a lot to you, expressions. It's almost like intuition of the mind, telling your mind what you want it. The power that made the body heals the body. Just really powerful stuff. And like I said, Dee and BJ were well beyond their years. And I think a lot of gurus in medicine, natural medicine, alternative medicine, have used some of the philosophies that they actually developed. So the bus of Dee Palmer, BJ Palmer, Mabel, as well as David Palmer, those busts are displayed in front of the Palmer campus. If you walk behind the bus, that's where their burial site is. They're enshrined forever inside those busts. So it would be worth visiting. Palmer College has questionably, the largest osteological study in the world. They have 25,000 osteological specimens. These are basically spines. So if you walk through, and they don't have them all on display, they're still looking for a space to build a museum. And once they get the museum, they'll put a lot of information, a lot of the stuff you can't see. In fact, Dr. Mike, you were lucky to go upstairs of the Palmer mansion because it's off limits. And I haven't even seen the upstairs of the Palmer mansion. And we went to school there, and we had classes where we actually go in the Palmer house itself. So 25,000 basically different spines. If you look at the laws today, you can't have a human bone. I remember talking to some of these old timers, they would have skeletons from actual human specimens, which you're not allowed to have. So there was a radio station called WOC. It stood for World of Chiropractic or Wonders of Chiropractic. This is where Ronald Reagan got his first job. He was a broadcaster for that radio station owned by BJ Palmer. And so the little bit of history of the chiropractic with the art, science, and philosophy put together by the Palmers to develop what we know chiropractic as today was really founded by these brilliant minds back in 1895. So, Dr. Mike.
Yeah, that's really good information. Really, a lot of rich history there, and it's in the bricks and the mortar. One other story about B.J. Palmer, he invented a lot of things. He invented the TV tray where he didn't like his vegetables touching each other, so he had the school cafeteria trays that have different compartments, and he wrote so many books that the old-fashioned typewriters that he invented the ream of paper, so he didn't have to keep putting pieces of paper in there and typing it out. So he wrote one book continuously because it just one stream of paper and had someone edit it. So he was just brilliant and genius. And then last thing about BJ Palmer is back in the area, the Mayo brothers who started the Mayo Clinic, one of the brothers' wives was so ill and they couldn't help her. And so they brought her to BJ Palmer on campus because he would adjust people in a specific way and analyze their spine and x-ray them and use the right timing and the right analysis and the right exact adjustment with that something extra. And so he helped one of the Mayo brothers' wives get well and stay well. So during their lifetime and BJ's lifetime, he said, if you ever have a chiropractor or a spouse that needs care, they are welcome to go to the Mayo Clinic at no charge, because he literally saved one of the Mayo brothers' wives.
Wow. Incredible history.
Pretty cool stuff. The philosophy of chiropractic, I'm going to read a quote from D.D. Palmer, because this really started the philosophy of chiropractic. Here's a D.D. Palmer, our founder of chiropractic, had to say. He said, "One question was always uppermost in my mind in my search for the cause of disease. I desired to know why one person was ailing and his associate eating at the same table, working in the same shop at the same bench, was not." He wondered why. What difference was there in the two persons that caused one to have pneumonia, catarrh, typhoid, or rheumatism, while his partner, similarly situated, escaped? Why? And so they always asked why. And so the philosophy of chiropractic can be summed up as, our body is self-healing and self-regulating. Oh, okay, yeah, everyone's had a paper cut, and you look 5 days later, 7 days, it heals up. Our body is self-healing and regulating. Thank good. My heart is going to regulate my blood pressure when I'm sleeping, and it's going to digest my food when I'm sleeping. And so the nervous system is the master control system that coordinates and controls all organs and tissues and systems in the body. And so when you have interference from that brain down the spinal cord out to the peripheral nerves, to our organs and tissues and systems and muscles and joints, there's going to be lack of ease or dis-ease or disharmony or discoordination in the body. And so what chiropractors do is they locate, they analyze and locate, and then they correct that interference, and you mentioned it, a subluxation, to help the body heal properly, help it heal faster, help it get back into balance and harmony and homeostasis so the body can function like it was designed to do. And it isn't much more complicated than that. There's 33 principles of chiropractic, Dr. Gordy, as you know. The first one, the major premise, universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to it all its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. Wow, that's a whole lot, and that's a whole nother conversation that we could have. And then the chiropractic meaning of life, principle number 2, is the expression of intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. So we help express this innate intelligence that you touched on earlier. We help express that through the body by removing interference, because the expression of that intelligence through our matter can allow our body to self-heal and regulate and coordinate and function like it was designed to do. And so it truly is as simple as that. And so it's really exciting to hear the people that are still alive that graduated when B.J. Palmer was president, the Larry Marksons, the Tom Morgans, and some of these mentors in our profession, because they would just, that's what just kept them at it when people would call them quacks, or, they said, oh, they couldn't practice, or they're practicing without a license, or they're accused of practicing medicine. And they just wanted to heal people by using their hands and removing interference to their body. And that's just what kept them going, is the reason why. And that's the philosophy of chiropractic. So it's really, really fun to talk to chiropractors and talk shop. It might not be so exciting for our audience, Dr. Gordy, but we could talk for hours, because our mentor, Dr. Fred Barge, we met him in La Crosse, Wisconsin at the lacrosse club, and he was quizzing us and asking us about the principles and stuff. And we have his books, and he's just oozed philosophy of, he just lived chiropractic.
One of his talks, or one of his expressions, was, have you more faith in a spoonful of medicine than the power that animates the living world? How dare you? I'm imitating how he spoke. He had this like accent, and it was just resonating out. Oh, Mike, I forgot to mention one thing. When those chiropractors were put in jail for practicing with a license, it was almost as if they were so well known in the community that all their patients would come visit them. They would adjust their patients in jail. And then also the sheriff and some of the staff at the jail would also get adjusted at the, in the jail cell with that patient. So I forgot to include that as well.
Yeah.
Continue. I love what you're saying.
Those are fun stories. And I miss, I used to always go to Palmer Homecoming because that was the best homecoming, and the spizzerinctum, they call it, the excitement and the fire, and listening to Reggie Gold and some of the greats. Medicine, the study of disease and what causes a man to die. Chiropractic, the study of health and what causes a man or woman to live. And so chiropractors talk about life and health and how to function. You and I don't even have to ask you this, Dr. Gordy. We are going to get our spines checked until we die. I don't care if we have back pain or neck pain, or we have pain or no pain or whatever. We are going to remove any interference on a regular basis, because we know our life is better. We know we'll be able to self-heal and regulate and think better and breathe better, digest better, be better. And I just know it. I don't have to ask you. You're going to see a chiropractor wherever you live and wherever you move, and whether you retire tomorrow and are practicing or not, you'll just find out a chiropractor to check your spine, and so will I.
Yeah. And the thing is, Mike, they used to think, oh, chiropractic was for back pain, neck pain, headaches. Not so much anymore. The research now that they're coming out with, ADD, asthma, I'm sure health and wellness, that's what we're into. Vertical balance problems, blood pressure, seeking chiropractic for low back pain versus opioids, like I just said. There's studies on all these things going on, and it's really exciting right now in our profession.
If you want to look up, we talked briefly about the philosophy, the science. If you just want to look up chiropractic research, just type that in to your search engine. You'll see, 2014,
Yeah.
top 12 studies. Chiropractic is a lot of musculoskeletal at first. Chiropractic adjustments boost antioxidant levels. Chiropractic care keeps seniors mobile and active. Chiropractic is safe and effective for back pain during pregnancy. And you'll see all the references for that. But then if you really look into further, you'll see chiropractic adjustments has the same effect as 2 blood pressure lowering medications. Chiropractic adjustments can normalize blood pressure both ways. Chiropractic adjustments can help children with autism. Chiropractic adjustments help HIV/AIDS patients. 75-year-old research archives of chiropractic research. So it's rich, it's out there. We don't have the most wealthy colleges and the way to distribute all of this in chiropractic journals to the public, but look it up online. It's right there with all the references.
There's one website I want to share with the audience. It's basically chiro.org/research. If you put that in the search engine, by the way, just if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put it in the comments section. So it's chiro.org/research. And it has just an extensive of everything that you want to see. It might have ADD, and there'll be so much research under the ADD. It validates so much that we can't even cover here. There's a lot of information there. So I'll include that in the comments section.
So we talked a bit about philosophy. The science is robust. And then we didn't even talk about case studies. Like someone came into my office today, a 24-year-old female new patient came in with numbness and tingling down her leg, chronic low back pain, chronic headaches, meaning over years, and 24 years old, never been to the chiropractor, and didn't have a lot of trauma or whatever. So she just knew she didn't want to take a lot of pills. And whatever she was doing, stretching and icing and heating and whatever, wasn't working. So she wanted some assistance from a chiropractor to help her body heal and repair. And it was so fun to see someone who would like to see someone young, like I did on Monday. I saw a 4-month-old that would only turn one way. We kind of call that torticollis in chiropractic, or Rhineck. And then the parents were concerned that the baby was already starting to get a little bit of a flat spot on the head because it wasn't sleeping and turning, and it was only resting on one spot. So that was really fun to reassure the parents that I could help them. And I worked on the kid, and the kid didn't even flinch, and definitely didn't cry, and definitely didn't. You have to use a lot of force, and so that ties into technique in chiropractic, or our art. There's over 400 techniques in chiropractic. Some of the breakdown of them are tonal, meaning we can use gentle force. Dr. Gordy talked about this HIO, upper cervical gentle C1 adjustment. That's more of a tonal technique to restore the normal tone of the spinal cord and the nervous system. D.D. Palmer said chiropractic was founded on tone. So that's the tone of the nervous system. Structural, there's a lot of structural techniques in Gonstead and taking x-rays and CBP and Pettibon, where they use traction devices and instruments and things to mechanically force curves into the spine. And then there's muscular techniques using rehab and in focusing on the muscles instead of just the nervous system. And so there's 400 plus techniques. And my number one recommendation to find a good chiropractor is through referral. If you really need some help, you can ask one of us and reach out to one of us on YouTube or through our channel in the comments. But actually ask your friend, family, colleague, coworker, whatever, what techniques they use, where are they from, what style of practice do they have, what type of conditions do they see? Can you look on their website? Can you call the front desk? If the front desk doesn't have a clue about what the doctor does in back, they're either brand new or you need to really find someone at the front desk or their website that answers some questions of exactly what they do and what analysis they use. And real quick, Dr. Gordy, I'll go through a couple of things that I use for analysis, and then I'll let you talk about some technique in analysis too. Reggie Gold, one of my early mentors, said the most important thing in chiropractic technique is the post-check. Whether you push on their atlas, you're using an instrument, you're using a drop table, you're doing some manual adjustments. You need to have some analysis, whether you check their leg or the muscle tension or the range of motion, how they're moving, or you take an x-ray. You need to do a procedure called an adjustment, and then you need to have a post-check to see what changes were made. And you want to see changes every time, whether that functional short leg got even, they can breathe deeper, their eyes are more relaxed, they're standing up straight, they can move their body better. There's a lot of checks. And so some of the analysis I use is their posture. I have them stand on a slant board. I look at their posture. When they're laying face down, I check leg length. I check functional movements of their legs and their back by lifting legs up to see how their body is functioning. I use some analysis called the zone technique, where I push 6 points on the base of the skull that tells me how out of balance their brain and their body is, and which zone is the primary zone out of balance, and that's called the zone technique. And then I just like to check the tone of their Achilles tendon and their calves and their body, and just to see how much tension their muscular system is, because I know the nervous system controls their muscular system. And then when I deliver the adjustments and I post-check them, I want to make sure their tone is changed. And so those are just some of the simple analysis that I do, Dr. Gordy. And I'm curious what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Hey, just for the viewers who are watching this who don't have a chiropractor, I do have a blog that I'll put in the comment, and the blog is how to find the best chiropractor in your area. So it'll be a good resource. And one of them is referrals. The other one is reviews on Yelp or Google. And then there's a few other comments that you can look at. So look at the comment section, and it's just a quick bullet point to where to find a good chiropractor. Mike, I'm in downtown Chicago, so I see a lot of people are in their office for long periods of time. The weekend warrior who gets out and works out and goes well and beyond what they should. So I get a lot of those types in my office. My average patient that I see, a lot of people think, oh, they must be in their 60s, no? And no, the average age in downtown Chicago for me is probably upper 20s to early 30s. Most of these people grew up with mobile devices, computers and cell phones, and they've been crunched over, kind of destroying their posture, so to speak, for many, many years. So they grew up with those devices with poor posture, and they're now feeling the effects in their 20s. A lot of people that I see they just got out of college. And they spent all those years studying with, looking down at the books. And now they're into their career where they're actually putting many, many hours per day, per week, per month. That pain syndrome has caught up with them. And so what I do when somebody comes in the first time, I want to find out what's going on. When did it start? How did it start? What's going on? How are you feeling? And once I get that down, I'll have a little bit of history of where they're at, where they're coming from. And then what I want to do is I want to actually look at their posture like you do, Mike. I put them on a bilateral scale so I can see if they distribute weight one way more than the other. And if they distribute one way more than the other, I want to know if they have like an ankle problem, knee problem, or a hip problem on that side of their body. Sometimes I look at the posture, they have a shoulder up like this, like a high shoulder on the left. First thing I'll ask is, do you carry a handbag up there, or a purse, or a backpack? And they'll say yes. And I say, when I see a high shoulder like that, I don't think so much like the high shoulder. That doesn't really concern me. What I'm more concerned about, what's underneath that, what's the spine doing? How's it curved? Then if you add a little forward head posturing that everybody does in front of the computer, that just gives me more information. I have a computer scan that I do. It's a surface EMG. So I use a surface EMG on the spine, which gives me even more information. It puts it on a computer, graphs it out so I can really see what's going on with the neuromusculoskeletal system. And then I want to check the ranges of motion. If they're always, able to turn to the left more fluently than to the right, well, I want to see if they're doing something to one side of their body. So I give my patients homework. Tell me what you're doing, or you might be turning or sleeping or carrying a handbag or leaning or whatever it might be, wherever their deviation is for their posture. I want them to come back and tell me why. And a lot of times they'll come back and they go, gosh, I didn't realize this, but I have a filing cabinet and I'm always turning this way, always, and I don't turn this way. So we want to balance things out in that respect. As far as specifically palpating, if the patient can feel something and we get in there, we can feel it too. We can feel the muscles tighten up, they splint, they tighten, or even spasm. That's the way the body can tell you, hey, something's going on here. It's just it's basically a symptom. I look at that as a symptom, those little tension spots, whether you have pain in that particular area or no pain. If the muscles are splinting and tightening, that's a symptom that something's not quite right in that area. And then I'll check for how it palpates. Does it move properly, segmentally? Is there a little kind of like inflammation? Is there a little bit of a give, so to speak, in the tone? And so those are just indicators. And then, of course, I used to do more x-rays, and I got away from the x-rays unless somebody has radiculopathy, meaning that there's radiating pain from the neck into the shoulder, into the arm, to the fingers, or into the legs, the hips, and into the toes, etc., into the leg. So if there's some type of neurological consequence, then I want to see what's going on with the x-rays. If they have kind of a routine symptomatology that I see every day, I don't need to take an x-ray. In fact, a lot of times I'll look to do the structural type of an exam, and I can almost predict what will show up on the x-ray because you can see it on the outside as well. So that's kind of my exam process. During the pandemic, remember, everybody was working from home in front of computers. I used to have wellness people that just come in, no pain, maybe just a little stiffness here or there, or a mild pain, but they would just do mostly wellness. Now, when they were stuck at home in front of the computer, that's when I started seeing really funky symptoms. And these people would have tingling or numbness in the fingers, or the upper back symptomatology, headaches, sometimes jaw problems. They would come in with some of the most profound symptoms simply from compromising their posture. So if they don't have a compromised posture like Mike and I, we just get adjusted because we know that there's gravity on us at all times. We're under mental stress and other postural stresses. We want to reduce the stresses along the spine so our body can be optimally structurally as well as neurologically.
Yeah, very cool, Gordy. And there's questions online, like the top 20 questions about chiropractic. Do we have the same hours as medical doctors? Where do we go to school? What's our continuing education? I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm going to ask you one question.
Me?
And
is that the audience or me?
I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot. Since we don't ever rehearse these, of course, people can tell. Is it possible for someone to adjust their own spine?
It's a good question, right? Really good question. You hear stories where someone who's had headache for 15 years and they fall down the steps at the right position or the wrong position at the right time, and all of a sudden they don't have the headache anymore. Usually, no. I have a blog on this where can you adjust your spine? Can I, as a chiropractor, I have some problem here. Can I adjust it? I can't get the angle. I can't get the right range and direction that needed. I can't get the right force. So I can't adjust properly myself. It's impossible. When I have patients say, I can adjust myself. No, how? Yeah. Almost impossible.
So I like that answer. Thank you. And since we're wrapping up, I like the word adjustment versus manipulation. There's a time and a place for manipulation where someone can walk on your back and loosen things up and pull on your arm or your leg and lose. That's not always a bad thing to do gentle, controlled manipulations. But that's what a lot of people are doing when they're twisting their neck. They're using long levers in their jaw, in their occiput, and they're torquing their spine just to make a noise because they think the noise is the adjustment. We use short levers and are specific is what we do as chiropractors. And that's why we go to 6 to 8 years of college and we use adjustments, whether with our hands or with instruments or the table. And there's a massive difference. And I'm not shaming anyone about manipulating their own spine or their neighbor or their spouse or whatever, but there's a huge difference between an adjustment and a manipulation.
On this point, Mike, I want to make a really important point that the spine, you have 24 movable bones that are kind of built on top of each other. And when somebody does an adjustment and they think they're getting that noise is the adjustment, the noise is not the adjustment. The adjustment is the segment that doesn't move, getting that to move, restoring function and getting the nervous system to function from that joint. The problem with when people are turning and making these cracks, you have one area that's not moving due to an old accident, injury, slip and fall, and it's caused an area that's not moving. The area above it works fine. The area below it works fine. It's just that one area. A lot of times what happens is they try to do these self-cracking maneuvers and they get this to move even more and they get this bottom one to move even more, but this one right here is not moving. And what I find as a chiropractor, when I get in there and try to move these, because they have a predilection, I feel this need to kind of crack myself. And when they have that predilection for wanting to crack themselves, I automatically know that they got this area that's not moving. And when I get in there and I find it the hardest vertebrae to adjust because they've been kind of doing the wrong thing. But once that gets to moving and then everything moves as a unit and they don't have that predilection to wanting to crack themselves. So it's kind of in the same line of what you were talking about.
Yeah, and that's where the doctor of chiropractic turns into the doctor of the cause, to really find why their body isn't able to adjust itself and release and heal and repair and create ease and harmony. And so that's why we're trained to do what we do, and that's why we love doing what we do. And so to wrap things up, what is your number one takeaway from what we talked about that you can share with someone tomorrow at work or with a family member coming up on this weekend? And then what is the number one action step that you want to take based on what we talked about or what we jarred in your memory about a former chiropractor or a relative who's a chiropractor? Is it what we just talked about, not manipulating your own spine and actually calling one of us or calling one of our colleagues to get in for a thorough consultation and exam and an evaluation of your spine? Because I believe we're as old as our spine. I believe our spine is a sacred organ and we have to guard it well. We have to protect it. We have to maintain it because it protects the delicate nervous system inside the spine.
That's brilliant, Mike. I just want to say for those that want more information on research, check out the comments. If you're looking to find a chiropractor in your area, I'll leave that blog in the comment as well. We have social media sites, so please follow us. We're grateful. Please share this with others and like and comment. So we'll see you next time. In our next episode, Dr. Mike is on good fats. We'll tell you what the bad fats are.
Yeah, and it's one of the most important things that we talk about. We said inflammation was chiropractic's an important topic, but our cell membranes are made out of lipids. And so we need to teach you how to make sure your cell membranes are really healthy by putting only good fats in and what the bad fats are and how to look for them. And it's life-changing when you put the good fats in and remove the toxic waste called bad fats.
That's awesome, Mike. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on the Health Angle Podcast. Please subscribe to our channel and catch us for our next episode.